I know you addressed a little bit already this issue, but maybe you can address it in more detail, uh, whether or not you see Turkey's negotiation of the fuel swap deal as something positive.
I think both the fuel swap deal and America's criticisms of it were valid. So they had a breakthrough. They got Iran to agree to do something that Iran had not previously agreed to do. Now the American response was that's not enough, and it's true, it wasn't enough. But if we were in a more positive mindset, we would have said, well, we got something. Let's build on this. This is very positive. Okay, this is not everything we need, but it's a great step forward. So let's welcome it and let's see if we can use it as the basis for future negotiations. Nobody expected America to say, okay, we sign off on the deal. But let's at least not reject it out of hand. I think the reason we rejected it is we've already made a decision. We've decided you have to confront Iran. We spent all these weeks building up the sanctions resolution, and suddenly our so-called friend Turkey is trying to give Iran another way out, as we saw it, and we got irritated at that. So I thought that was a very positive step. And the fact that the American administration rejected it so quickly and so fully really does suggest to me that the United States is only on the confrontation path, which I find very odd because these sanctions are not going to work. There's nobody who believes they're going to work. Even the people in the U.S. government are admitting that they're not going to work. So I'm asking myself, what's the end game? What's the point of doing all this? Are we just trying to get Iranians mad at us, which I think we're probably succeeding in doing, without any positive result? If we really think sanctions are going to bring the Iranian regime to its knees and to say, oh, we surrender, we'll stop doing it, just tell us what to do and we'll do it. Okay, that would be a good reason to impose sanctions. But nobody believes that's going to happen. So instead of, and here's a way where I actually see Iran and Israel in a somewhat comparable position. Instead of isolating these countries and denouncing them and pushing them into corners and making them feel alone and friendless, the opposite policy is the right one. Try to lure them out of their isolation. You know, Iran and Israel are the two countries in that part of the world that are disliked by a number of their neighbors. And Israel and Iran are also disliked by many countries in the world. There's a lot of anti-Iran emotion coursing around the world, and there's a lot of anti-Israel emotion coursing around the world. And a lot of people that would like to punish Israel and or Iran. But that's emotion at work. Yeah, actually, when we leave emotion outside the room and think coolly about what's good for us, we realize that what's really good for us in the Middle East and what's really good for Israel in the Middle East, above all, is a calm neighborhood. That's going to be Israel's long-term security. Israel will not be able to defend itself forever only by military means. If it's got a huge hostile neighborhood, which will get even angrier in the years ahead and with demographic changes, Israel's survival is really endangered, and Israel is acting in ways that I think endanger it. So the best single thing we can achieve in the Middle East for ourselves and for our allies is a stable neighborhood. And the way to achieve that, I think, is to act more like the Turks would like us to act, to recognize that we can't impose our will anymore, and to see if we can't reach some of our goals by more conciliatory means.
Great, thank you. The next question, Turkey is pushing the U.S. on Gaza. Is this positive?
I must say, I think the organization in Turkey that sponsored that Gaza trip has succeeded beyond what must have been its wildest dreams. The real purpose of that mission was to try to focus world attention on what was happening in Gaza. And boy, did that succeed. It was, of course, a tragic outcome in the loss of life that occurred on that vessel. Nonetheless, you now have Egypt opening up its passageway into Gaza. Jordan is now starting to send supplies into Gaza, bankrolled by Saudi Arabia. The United States is suggesting that it might be time to change the conditions of the Gaza occupation, and even Israel has begun to say that, yes, it's true, we need to look at this again. So I think objectively already that challenge to the blockade of Gaza has had remarkable effects, and in a way, although I didn't like the confrontational aspect into which that flotilla deteriorated, I can see that if I were living in Gaza, I would think that was a good thing because now people in the world are thinking about us.
Great, thank you. What does Turkey's no vote in the Security Council mean for the ability of the U.S. to get stronger sanctions against Iran?
I don't think the Turkish no vote really affects it because the United States is still able to push the sanctions resolution through the Security Council even without Turkey. What I do think is interesting, however, is that other countries on the Security Council that are more powerful, particularly China, are determined to weaken these sanctions and already weakened this sanction resolution so tremendously that only a little bit of what the United States wanted in there is in there. For example, there's no restriction on the work of foreign energy companies, and Chinese companies in particular, inside Iran. The United States wanted permission for any ship to board any Iranian ship anywhere in the world that they thought might be carrying illicit cargo. That's not in there anymore. A lot of things got knocked out because of China's insistence. So I think what we wound up with this resolution is that the Chinese were saying, and maybe the Russians to a certain degree also, this is not a good idea to push these heavy sanctions on Iran. And America was saying, we gotta have sanctions because that's the whole thrust of our policy. So what they agreed on was something like a compromise. They passed a sanctions resolution, but there's hardly anything of substance in it, so most people were happy.
Mm-hmm. Here's another question. What is Hillary's role? What should Hillary do next?
Hillary Clinton is really in an odd position, I think. She's probably the most famous woman in the world. She's treated like a rock star wherever she goes. But yet, she has very little influence, as far as I can tell, over the shaping of American foreign policy, particularly in sensitive areas like the Middle East. An odd aspect of American foreign policy toward the Middle East is I still can't figure out who's running it. I don't know who, for example, is making our policy toward Iran. We don't know. Everything is so diffuse when it comes to American policy toward this region. It certainly isn't Hillary. In a way, I admire her because she's accepted what's actually quite a limited role, and she just does what Obama tells her, and when Obama tells her essentially, you shouldn't be getting involved in this, she doesn't get involved in it. So she's been a pretty good soldier. And nonetheless, I think her Cold War instincts are coming to the fore. She was the one that was sent out to denounce this Turkish-Brazil deal with Iran. I still feel that she is an example of somebody who developed a way of thinking about foreign affairs a long time ago during the Cold War and never really broke out of that paradigm. She's still in that prison even though the door is wide open.
So if you were in Obama's shoes, what would be the first thing you would do?
I have a little bit of sympathy for Obama on this. It's true that he has not really made any difference in American policy toward the Middle East, or particularly toward Iran, up to now. In fact, the policy is somewhat similar to what it was at the end of the Bush administration. But let's face it, Obama's had one or two other things to do. And I don't think he himself personally has ever really spent a lot of time thinking about geopolitical and strategic issues because he's never had a job before where he ever had to do that. And there's still time left on the Obama ticket, so let's wait and see what happens. So what would I do first? What I'd like to do is do what I think national security advisors are supposed to do, and that is call into the room people with a whole variety of different views. One of the problems as we were in the run-up to the Iraq War was that the only people allowed in the room to talk to the president were people that already agreed with the president. They'd already been screened, and that, I think, was what he wanted. But I would like to see Obama say, bring me in a half a dozen people who want to talk about what could be our ideas for dealing with Iran and the Middle East, and make sure they don't agree with everybody, with each other, because I want to hear a variety of views. That would certainly be something new.